Good afternoon and welcome to this week's regularly scheduled Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee meeting. I'm Commissioner Jeff Rader, and I have the honor of chairing the committee, and I'm joined by Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson and Commissioner Larry Johnson, who are members of the committee, in addition to other members of the commission, including, as I can see, Commissioner Ted Terry, and perhaps there are some others, Commissioner Robert Patrick, and perhaps others that do not have their camera on at this point. Certainly appreciate their attention to our business. We have had a special call meeting since our last regularly scheduled meeting, and thus have two sets of minutes for those meetings. Commissioners, have you had a chance to review the minutes of the June 28th and July 7th meetings?
Yes, sir, I have, and I find no fault. So at this time, I would recommend that we approve them as presented.
Second.
The motion is to approve 1871 and 1903. Is there any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Great, thank you. Next item on our agenda is a interview. The candidate recommended by our Independent Audit Oversight Committee. And who is going to manage that item for us? Dr. Obang, are you going to introduce us?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we have Ms. Gloria Gray, who comes highly recommended from the Audit Committee, and I believe the committee does have the questions to proceed, and Ms. Gray is here with us, so we can proceed.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Gray, thank you for making time to be with us today. It is the practice of the Board of Commissioners to interview candidates that are nominated for positions that we're responsible for approving. And so you come to us as a nominee from our Audit Oversight Committee. I welcome you here today and offer you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I first offer you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the members of the board. We've received your resume. I'm not sure everyone's had a chance to read it, but nevertheless, if you would introduce yourself to us and briefly summarize the experience that brings you here to us today.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. My name's Gloria Gray. I had a career with AT&T, formerly Bell South within AT&T, in the auditing and accounting world, primarily in the audit world. I worked mostly in audit throughout my 30-year career with AT&T. I retired from that position in 2018. With my last 10 years with AT&T, I actually got a little taste of government accounting because I was the finance manager for a contract that AT&T has with the state of Georgia. But prior to that, I spent all of my career either in audit or doing process improvement type work, which is very similar to audit, because with process improvement, you're looking at developing a process and trying to make sure it has the appropriate controls within that process. I'm also a certified public accountant, and I have an accounting degree from Georgia State University. Since I retired from AT&T, I've done some volunteer work primarily with taxes. I work through AARP each year doing the volunteer tax work, wherein we do taxes, not just for individuals who are 55 and over, but for anybody who comes our way. I've also done some work with the PPP plan during COVID when that plan was in place. And I've done tutoring with elementary school students from kindergarten through 3rd grade. So that's me in a nutshell. In my spare time, I enjoy exercising, traveling, reading, and I also have been dabbling a little bit with some interior design, just really with my own house.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you sharing both your career and professional background as well as a little bit about you as a person. Thanks very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, staff has prepared a list of 8 questions. Commissioner Larry Johnson, have you got those in hand, and would you like to take the first one?
Yes, thank you. Just trying to respond to some nonsense. All right, the first question would be, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you will use your skills to help to increase the accountability and efficiency of the audit committee.
Okay, so I guess I somewhat already told you a little bit about myself, so I can piggyback and take it a little further to tell you how I would use my skills to help the audit committee. I can just draw on my background and experience of doing audit work for over 30 years and use that. It's the same type of experience, but I will be looking at it from a different perspective because I understand that with the audit committee, it's pretty much an oversight governance type organization to help ensure independence of what's happening internally with the internal audit group. So it's taking those same skills, but looking at it from a different perspective. But once you have those skills, it will enable me, I feel like, to be a good part of a team who can help evaluate and determine, is the internal audit entity maybe looking at the right things and doing the right assessments? I mean, are they doing good risk assessments and focusing on the things that really make a difference?
Thank you. Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, would you like to take another question from the list?
Absolutely. And thank you, Ms. Gray, for having the conversation with us today.
You're welcome.
My question to you would be, what do you understand the role of the Audit Oversight Committee to be?
My understanding of the role of the Audit Oversight Committee is to kind of do, I guess, an independent look at what the internal audit entity is doing as it relates to evaluating all the risk and controls throughout the entity. Look, you want to make sure, for example, that from a government entity, the funds are being used properly. There are laws and regulations along the way. You want to make sure that there's compliance with those types of things. And so from an audit oversight committee, you're not going to actually do the work, but you're going to kind of be looking over at what's being done and seeing if you have any concerns about the way it's being done, or any questions or any input that you feel could make processes better.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And some of the other questions you've likewise answered in terms of the work that you have done and its contribution. I'm interested, though, in the circumstance of you directing the chief internal auditor, what process and framework would you recommend be utilized in formulating the annual work program?
Well, I mean, I think there are various frameworks that you could use, but you want to use a framework that focuses in on doing a good assessment of the overall risk of the entities so that you can determine what are the things that you need to focus on, and if those things are the ones that the audit plan is covering. You want to make sure that we're not looking over at an area wherein there's not that much risk, or if they, and then you're kind of maybe not focusing on something where there's more risk that could inhibit the achievement of the overall objectives of the entities. So, I mean, you could use the COSA framework. There are other very similar frameworks that you could use also, or whatever framework you do use, you want to make sure that it looks at the information that the system has, the processes in place, and then compliance with processes. Because you could have a lot of good processes, but if we're not in compliance with them, then we're still not going to get to where we need to be.
Thank you. Commissioner Larry Johnson?
What number are we on so far?
Number 6.
Number 6, thank you, sir. What methods would you recommend be employed to evaluate the adequacy of department's internal controls?
Well, I guess it's very similar to what Jeff Rader just answered.
Mhm.
So I would recommend any method that starts out with understanding the process. Once you understand that process, then you can do a risk assessment of the process. And having done that risk assessment, you can determine where the greatest problems may be potential for things to go wrong. And so you're going to use that then to develop an audit program plan and move ahead and making sure that you're in compliance with once you have developed that. Because the key is understanding up front, what it is you need to look at and making sure that you do a good risk assessment. And then you're going to, if you do that properly, you're going to focus in on the things that are most important. And you can develop a plan and then just adhere to that plan.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Commissioner Cochran Johnson, question number 7.
Absolutely. Ms. Gray, please discuss at a high level as it relates to executive encounters that you've experienced where an audit finding or recommendation was detrimental to the executive. How did you handle that situation? And also, what was the outcome of that evaluation that was detrimental to the executive?
Okay, yeah, I can think of a situation that was detrimental to the executive, and so it was pretty much difficult to get buy-in. So actually, the buy-in wasn't gotten until we got into the final meeting with the overall executives and other people in their organization, because I kept getting pushback saying, no, we're not gonna do this way. We don't agree with it. And not only was it a problem with that executive, it was a problem with my executive also. But what I did in that situation is I still realized I had to maintain my independence and let the facts speak for themselves. So I just never backed down until what I knew were the facts that had been tested all the way, and then once we got to that point, it seems like things changed. The buy-in just almost came organically because the data was there to support it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's always a tough position to be in. Audit is sort of, it is inherent to the issue, but I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Davis Johnson, I see that you've raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Rader. I think that you all skipped number 4, and I was interested in that.
Oh, please do. If you want to go ahead and.
Okay. Please describe the most complex performance and financial audit that you have conducted, and what is the largest budget for which you have conducted these audits?
Okay, so it would be a billing audit, and we're talking more than $500 million, because with AT&T, we generate lots of revenue when I was with the company. So it really would be a billing audit wherein there were a lot of different system interfaces in and out of the process, but the systems didn't, like the data didn't flow from one system to the next properly. So there were a lot of interventions wherein manual workarounds were being done and then fed back into the process. And so it would just take some time to understand that with the manual input, how you're getting completeness and accuracy and, and everything that you need, so that at the end of the whole process, you have data. You want it to be accurate on our side, of course, because there's the revenue leakage that you want to prevent. But we also have, responsibility to the customer. So you want it to be accurate on their side, because you don't want to bill people improperly either. So, it's like bringing in data from a lot of different systems and following it throughout the process, wherein you're having to do some manual steps and then feed data back in, but looking at all the inputs and outputs and the adequacy of the controls around it.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis Johnson. And as a final question, and one that we always ask as the final question, are you serving in any volunteer or professional capacity that may pose a conflict of interest if you're selected to serve on the committee? Do you have any limitations that would preclude you from committing to either a 1-year or a 4-year term of service?
No, I don't know of anything right now. I do, like I did mention earlier, I do during the tax season, I do the volunteer tax work. But up until this point, we don't normally, it looks like most of the committee meetings are on Fridays. We don't normally do it on Fridays. It's pretty much a Monday through Thursday process. And I do intend to keep doing that. So and if there's something that would change on your side that would impact that, then yeah, there would be a conflict. But right now, I don't have a conflict. The only other thing I do with DeKalb County is some tutoring at, some schools, and I would like to continue to do that. So I don't think either one of those would conflict with this work.
Thank you very much.
You're
And now, after having asked that suite of questions, certainly want to offer you another opportunity if there's any other concluding statements that you'd like to make before the commission moves on and considers the rest of its agenda.
Well, I do have one question maybe that I want to post back into whomever would like to answer it. So from the commissioner's standpoint, what do you guys view to be the most important thing that the Audit Oversight Committee should be doing?
Yeah, well, let me start, and then certainly our colleagues can add to this, but obviously the primary role of the Audit Oversight Committee is to supervise the work of the independent internal auditor and their staff. And so to me, the capacity to provide that oversight and guidance and to be able to evaluate the work and the recommendations of that professional staff are the most important roles of the member of the Audit Oversight Board. But I would also add that to me, it is very important that the members of our board have a real commitment and passion to improving and elevating the operation of DeKalb County government. As a government, it's hard to put us out of business, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are in every way as efficient or as effective as we ought to be. And I would hope that the members of our Audit Oversight Board, would help us to better understand the opportunities available to us through the work of an independent internal auditor.
Okay.
Commissioners, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I would just add and thank you again for offering yourself up for service to this county. We appreciate that so much. I think what I've gotten out of the audit committee is the way that you, I like the efficiencies that you show us how we can improve and how we can, make things better. And it's not a gotcha type of thing where you're trying to find something and get it out to the press, but it's more like, how can we work together to improve county operations? And that was been my biggest takeaway from the process and working, and you all as oversight members and you coming on brand new. So you bring very fresh insight into that process and how we do it. So that's what I look forward to seeing more of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Very nice to meet you, Gloria, Ms. Gray.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service. I know this is, it could be kind of seen as like a really technical, maybe boring kind of committee, but I think this is pretty interesting stuff. So glad you're interested in it. My interactions with the audit department have been mostly through the contracting items. I think we have that's sort of a standing rule on one of the committees, and I think PWI sort of over 3 million. But I suppose we could ask anything to be audited. But I think usually the larger contracts, I think that system's working. It identifies savings, or at least sort of ground truths some of the bid things, the bid items that come before us. So I think that's been so I want to keep that going. And then I know that Mr. Campbell did, I think, send around a questionnaire at the beginning of the year, I think, or maybe it was a couple months back, sort of asking us where we thought there should be priorities in sort of just like kind of the regular course of the audit, department, in terms of auditing a certain program or a certain department, and kind of, the order of that, knowing that there's only so much time in a day and that we can't audit everything all at once, but what are the priorities? So I think that was really positive. I'd want to keep that sort of feedback loop in play, because I think each year that something might emerge that might be sort of more crucial than others. I think certainly, any opportunity to just understanding, and probably our largest expenditure over the next 10 years will be watershed. That, if there's opportunities to find efficiencies, or, just even go back and sort of look at past projects and sort of ask the question, did we do everything right here? Could we improve some things? Not trying to, get anybody, but more just with that eye towards how can we improve efficiencies, year in and year out. And I could see watershed being the biggest opportunity for that. And so I'd really would love for you to kind of continue to be sort of that voice, asking about how's the watershed work going. Let's look at past projects, look at future projects. We brought up this morning just that question from Commissioner Cochran-Johnson about one of the vendors that had been paid under a certain name, but then we find that joint venture didn't actually exist anymore. So things like that we can hopefully uncover sooner, so we're not sort of doing something over and over again that probably shouldn't make sense and that we should course correct on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Cochran-Johnson.
Yes, I just wanted to say to Ms. Gray that I think it's really important when you talk about audit to have both internal and external patrols, because we all want the best outcome, but that external control and the knowledge, the degree of skill that you bring, it's just invaluable as it relates to the oversight of items that come through our internal department. So, there's never a lack of items here that we audit at all times. So I'll look forward to, believing that you'll move forward those many years of wisdom that you have, because I've read really carefully, your resume and your degree of skill. So I do believe you could be extremely valuable as these contracts come and go, and we look at our procedures and policies and best practices. So always be that independent voice. We look for someone to catch what someone else may not have thought of. And that's what we need out of that external individual. So thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you all for inviting me.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. And this item is on our agenda for our next meeting, which will be the 26th of July. So we'll look forward to making a decision at that point.
Okay.
I had a,
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Davis Johnson, you had a comment.
yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine. I just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Gray, for your thorough answers. You were very impressive to me about the knowledge and depth that you have. And I know that comes with years of experience in the field. So I just wanted to say thank you. We appreciate you for offering yourself. And not only to DeKalb commissioners, a board, the ethics board, but also to the students, the young people that I know needs your expertise as well as guidance and wisdom in their lives. So just wanted to say thank you again for offering yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, our next item is 1743. It is a cancellation of a contract. I guess we would ask Ms. Horner to present this particular item.
Okay, as you,
Juvenile court, I guess. Which one is it?
I'd be more than happy to sound it for
Great,
you.
thank you. Mhm.
All right, it's a cancellation of contract number 1224752, and it is for the Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention. It's an annual contract with 2 options to renew, and it's for use by juvenile court. Consists of procuring substance abuse counseling and test services for at-risk county youth. Awarded to Family Children First LLC, DBA Georgia Hope LLC, cancellation of contract only. And our recommendation is to go ahead and move forward with the contract cancellation.
Mhm. Thank you. Is there anyone here from juvenile court that can provide us additional detail?
Yes, Commissioner Rader. Keisha Jones, I'm the Grants and Services Administrator for Juvenile Court.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just to provide you a little bit of background, as Ms. Horner stated, we did issue an ITB and subsequently a contract for Georgia Hope Incorporated. Unfortunately, they lost a number of therapists and were unable to secure someone that was appropriate to provide services for this contract. And so we asked that we would be able to cancel this contract so we could move forward with another vendor.
All right, thank you. Do you have another vendor from a prior selection process that you could resort to, or do you think that we'll have to put this out for an ITV again?
No, we do have another vendor. The other part about this was this grant actually ends on September 30th. So we needed to make sure that we moved forward as quickly as possible. We do have another vendor that is available to provide services.
All right, thanks very much. Commissioners, is there any further questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on this item.
So moved.
Is there a second? I believe I saw Commissioner Cochran-Johnson's lips move, so I'll assume that's
I second.
great. So the motion is to recommend approval of this contract cancellation, second by Commissioner Cochran-Johnson. Seeing no other input, all in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. It is unanimous. The recommendation is to approve the cancellation. The next item is item 1786. It is a maintenance contract for the Sheriff's Office. Ms. Horner, can you give us the preliminaries?
Yes, it is a renewal and it's a cooperative agreement for facility management solutions, contract number 1262442 for use by the Sheriff's Office. Contract consists of piggybacking off the competitively let statewide contract number 99999-SPD 0000154-0001 for preventative maintenance services for the county jail. It's awarded to CGL Facilities Management LLC, amount not to exceed $939,741.39. And our recommendation is to approve this renewal on a month-to-month basis for a maximum of 6 months.
Okay, so that informs the amount not to exceed is 6 months worth of their monthly amount. Is that right?
It is my understanding that that is.
Okay. And is the say again why we're going month to month for 6 months rather than an annual renewal?
It is my understanding the sheriff's office would like to do a solicitation, and they're currently working on a scope of work. So this contract would be month to month until a new contract could be in place.
All right. Is there anyone here from the sheriff's office that can provide us additional insight into this renewal? Chief Akins?
Good evening, commissioners. How are you all today?
Very well, thank you.
So yes, the information provided thus far is correct. CGL, the current contract has been in place for the past 6 years. And we're asking, the sheriff's office is working with the purchasing department as part of the RFP process. And completing the RFP process in hopes of having this particular contract out for bid.
All right. Are there any questions from members of the committee or other members of the commission? Commissioner Cochran-Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at this, it looks as though we're spending, and correct me, because I know that the jail has, it's in need of much, I won't call it delayed maintenance. It's just a lot going on over there. But looks as if we're spending $156,000 a month in facilities and preventive maintenance services. So I just want to know from you, Mr. Akins, I know that there is a presentation forthcoming to us all as a body as to a study that was recently done. But $156,000 a month, that's a lot of money. And maybe I'm wrong because I'm used to managing a household budget and not a jail. But just wondering what preventive maintenance services are taking place on a monthly basis, so that I just better understand what that looks like.
So, and thank you for those questions, Commissioner. The previous contract, I believe on an annual basis, was around 1.5 million. There was a 3 to 5% increase based on inflation and employees or salary adjustments for the employees who are employed with CGL. But more specifically, to answer your question, as it relates to preventative maintenance, there are several infrastructural equipments within the facility that constantly require preventative maintenance. All of the 13 elevators that we currently have, all of which have been in place since 1994 or 95, along with the chillers, along with the generators, and the list just goes on and on with some of the, to include some of the boilers, the 3 boilers that we have. There is a lot of preventative maintenance that must be done or should be done on a consistent basis in order for jail operations to maintain, day-to-day operations within the jail. And to be honest with you, there are, as you mentioned, there's a presentation that is forthcoming, but there are really some other challenges within the jail. Not just based on the age, but based on in addition to some of the challenges we're facing with where inmates are as far as damage in the facility. But a lot of preventative maintenance is required. A lot of what I call as the core equipment that keeps the facility running 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can't turn off. That equipment is needed. That equipment requires, I should say, constant preventative maintenance, if not constant repairs.
And Mr. Akes, does any of this include, because I know that we've had an ongoing issue with mold and mold remediation. Have we cured that problem? Or is that still a part of ongoing maintenance?
That is still a part of ongoing maintenance along with other water intrusion issues that we're dealing with within the facility. Again, because of the age of the facility, when the inmates flood by design, when the inmates flood their housing units, by design, there were no drains placed inside of each pod. So the water just sits and the water eventually just runs from tower to tower. And we know how water is or how water can be. So while we have I think a handle on some of the mold, there are some other mold concerns that have come about within the past couple of weeks here that we're probably going to have to readdress, along with some other water intrusion issues, not just from a courtyard area, but from a roofing perspective as well. So.
Okay, and one question, and I think I'm asking you, Mr. Akes, and I'm also engaging COO Williams, because the report that you all will be giving as it relates to the findings from the study, is that, Mr. Williams, the report that we had requested some time ago? Because, understanding the amounts of investments that we've made in the jail, we had raised questions as to its utility. So are you, as the administration, I don't know if you've seen the study yet or not, but literally did the sheriff and the sheriff's department literally create the study that we had asked of you, and now they are bringing it forward? Is that correct?
I believe the simple answer is yes. The sheriff department has been managing the studies for the refurbishment and or replacement of the jail for probably the past 5 years in varying forms. So
okay.
The report that they have prepared was of their making and not of the administration.
Okay, so I'll look forward to hearing from the administration on that report and hearing the findings, because we don't know what that is yet, but we know it's forthcoming.
Right,
So,
and Chief Akes, if I could have an advanced copy, that'd be great.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Mr. Williams.
Yes, so to fulfill the commissioner's request, if I could have an advanced copy prior to the presentation to the board, I'd appreciate it.
I got you.
and thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to ask those questions. Thank you.
All right. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on item 1786.
So moved.
And I think I saw Commissioner Cochran-Johnson's lips move again, so I'm going to assume that she's seconding Commissioner Larry Johnson's motion to recommend approval of this month-to-month renewal with capacity for 6 months.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
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 All opposed, like sign. The item is approved unanimously. We have another item on the agenda that at our meeting this morning, we deferred for 30 days, 1837, amendments to the county's debt management policy. Dr. Obang, would you like to give us a report on the input that you've received on the debt management policy proposal from various quarters and your strategies for going forward?
Yes, sir. So as you may know, staff and I worked on a draft debt management policy, and we gave it to Law, who also shared it with bond counsel and gave us some feedback. So we're kind of going through it now, cleaning up the document a little bit. And as we usually do, after Law has kind of worked with us on, some technical terminology and making sure that we're aligned in terms of the language and semantics, we're going to share it with the administration and make sure that aside from the legal aspects, that what we actually have in the policy is actually executionable and will actually both meet the needs of the administration and commissioners in terms of what they want to see done in the selection of a financial advisor, as well as the processes of being able to come back to the board to kind of update the board on where we are in terms of the debt and how we want to manage that process and what the involvement of the board should look like in that process. So we are kind of in the process now of cleaning it up, and then we're going to be connecting with the administration to get some more feedback based on the feedback that we've received from the bond counsel as well as the law department. So I'm open to any questions on that.
First, let's see if there's any of the members of the committee. I don't see any committee members' hands up right now, but and so I will go to Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Yeah, my question, Dr. O'Bain, I don't know if I got this right or not, but is the central staff on the committee?
I'm sorry, so are you referring to the committee to select the financial advisor?
Yeah.
So that's part of what we're going to flesh out. Because we're not technical experts as it pertains to what we would look for in a financial advisor, and it says central staff or designee. So that's part of what we want to have the conversation with the administration about, to see how we can best incorporate the involvement and feedback from the board as it pertains to selecting the financial advisor. So that's part of the second phase in terms of what we want to do with the administration.
Okay, because I think it's a little, well, I have a little concern if central staff is part of the committee. And so I'd like to.
Let me explain a particular circumstance that would inform that decision, and that is the fact that the financial advisor is expected to advise not only the administration and the CEO's administration, but also is there to advise the Board of Commissioners, both on matters of debt management, but also on matters of budgetary concern. So the Board of Commissioners ends up being a user department of this particular engagement. So as a user department, the protocol of the purchasing policy is that user departments are represented on the selection committee.
Well, I think if the central staff is giving us independent information for us to digest and deliberate on, I don't see how they could be on a committee to form an opinion. But I will have further comments on that. I don't think that would be appropriate, because I don't think that the information that they're gathering would be independent if they're part of that. And so, that's my position.
Okay, and perhaps you could, I'm not exactly sure that I currently see the logic, but perhaps you could reduce it to writing so that we would better understand.
Yeah, well, maybe central staff can reduce it to writing as to how they perceive their role being. So that I can understand, so that I can have a clear understanding of their perspective.
The way I see it so far, our role is just as facilitators and making sure that we're getting input from all the stakeholders and bringing that to the table for that selection to be made. I don't see ourselves as necessarily at the table actually being part of the selection making process. But, we will have more conversations with the administration to kind of see how they can best see the involvement or the participation of the board and how we can help support that process.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Any other comments on this process? We will have it on our agenda again at our next meeting, and hopefully benefit from the work that they've done between then and now. All right, seeing no other questions, we'll move on. I have a quick question, though, that is sort of a follow-up. Is Dr. Obeng, at a previous presentation of the financial statements, we, I think, came to a consensus that the committee would appreciate work with the finance director to develop a format by which anomalies or points of interest from the financial statements could be identified prior to their presentation, so that we wouldn't simply present the raw numbers, but instead identify issues of important note that would be more a focused topic of conversation there. Have you been able to begin that process yet? Because
Yeah.
we are probably due for a financial report pretty quick.
Yes, sir. That's actually part of what's on the agenda for our conversation, which I'm hoping we can have either this week or very early next week. So it's part of our topics for discussion.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll move on. And that item again has been deferred for 30 days. And so we will bring it up in our next scheduled FAB meeting. It is mid-year budget time. And as a result of today's action, the mid-year budget amendments proposed by the administration are now a focus of our efforts, but we also recognize that either independent offices or constitutional offices are likewise vested in that mid-year budget process. And Claudia Sari, our public defender, has asked to make a presentation to this committee on the budget of the Public Defender's Office. So good afternoon and welcome, Madam Public Defender.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time to address the mid-year budget request. And I will be brief because I just received this afternoon some additional budget information. I have a meeting with Mr. Sigler later this week to reevaluate our current budget. But just to outline what the request and what we have requested as part of our mid-year budget request is additional monies for pay increases for 61 of our attorneys. The challenge we are having unprecedented challenges with recruitment and retention of qualified attorneys, largely due to the low salary rates. What also complicated this challenge is that in April of 2022, Fulton County recognized the challenges surrounding the recruitment and retention, and they significantly increased the salary of all government attorneys in Fulton County, including the Public Defender Office. Right after that announcement, I lost several experienced attorneys to Fulton County. They are doing the same work in Fulton County, but they received a $40,000 to $50,000 pay increase. So since January 1, I have lost, like the rest of the country, what we're hearing about recruitment and retention, I've lost 10 attorneys since January 1st. And so part of the initiative and part of the plan that I submitted to the administration to budget was to use some of the salary savings I've had from all these resignations to help boost some of the salaries for the attorneys. And I have some salary savings. That's why I'm asking, I'm going to put a pause on my request right now until I meet with Mr. Sigler later this week, because there may be additional salary savings that we could use also to enhance some of the salaries for the attorneys. But I just wanted to, again, thank you for allowing me to be part of this. This is an urgent issue. I know the prosecutors are also facing the same challenge. Fulton County is the county that we compete with for qualified attorneys. And so we just need to make sure that we are having fair compensation with the market rate in other offices, as well as pay parity with the prosecutors. So I'm happy to answer any questions right now, but I want to have another meeting with budget and the administration to see if there's current budget, what we have in our budget now that we could use to perhaps enhance some of the attorney salaries.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the public defender? Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Attorney. Sorry for what you're doing. We appreciate that. What type of, are you asking for $30,000 and $40,000, or what's the increase you're asking for?
Yeah, for many, and it depends upon what level. We have different, attorney 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, supervising attorneys. And so it depends upon where they are in that particular range. This is, and what we're looking at, I can tell you what we've already shared with budget and the administration is the current pay classification system that DeKalb County has does not match Fulton. But what we're trying to do is get closer to the Fulton County salaries. And so we're working within the DeKalb County, the current pay grade. So yes, Commissioner Johnson, for some lawyers, it may very well be a $30,000 or $40,000 pay increase. Just as an example, we start attorneys right out of law school, attorneys 1 at $65,000. Fulton County pay scale is starting at $105,000. So, this is, like I said, we compete with the Fulton County office really for qualified attorneys. And I can tell you though, the people that are leaving, they're leaving just because of the money. They want to stay in DeKalb County. They want to work in DeKalb County. But as you can imagine, that's a life-changing amount of money for someone.
Yeah. Let me ask this, and I don't need their names or anything, but do you have can you send us what their last salary was at DeKalb and how many years of experience to the chair so we can have it? I would just like to see the comparison. The other part is we invested about ARPA money because you had a backlog.
Yep.
Now, did some of those attorneys, were those fresh out of college or those experienced attorneys, did any of those folks leave?
No, those were they had more experience. And so I actually moved them from the grant funded into the permanent positions for the people that left. So they're now permanent positions. But I can tell you it is very difficult to recruit experienced attorneys at the ARPA level, the salaries that we have. And that's one thing I've already spoken with the administration as well as budget is if we can actually do something more with the ARPA money that's remaining to perhaps recruit some other experienced lawyers. But it's the market is hard and they're just not willing to spend a year, basically is what we're down to, or by December of 2023 when the grant money runs out. So we might have to readjust and kind of pivot with what our thought was and how we can try to get the extra help for the COVID backlog into the courts.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Chair, there's one or two more questions. Now, since a lot of those are experienced attorneys that left and you got these new attorneys coming in, will they be able to, since they may need that bump, move into those positions with those established salaries, or are you trying to bring in more experienced attorneys?
I'm trying to bring in more experienced attorneys.
I get you.
Because it takes, it takes a good 5 years
I get you.
Training and working with an attorney. Because the more serious the criminal charge, the more experience.
Yeah, you need that. You need that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's go to Commissioner Cochran Johnson as a member of the committee and then to Commissioner Terry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm just wondering, because I sit here and multitask and I'm reading through all this, but at this point, Ms. Sari, we don't have a specific ask, or did I overlook that?
No, we did. What my ask was in the mid-year budget was an additional $775,000.
Okay.
But the information I just received from Mr. Sigler this afternoon is that I might have additional salary savings. So that number may very well go down. And so I want to give accurate information to the commissioners with any of the needs.
Understood. And you know, I understand, and I'm very sympathetic to what you're experiencing. And it's just unfortunate, though. We're seeing this in a lot of different departments where we're not able to adequately compete with salaries, and we're doing the best that we can, and we're making increases. But I understand. So thank you so much for coming before us. And I do hope the number goes down, because we don't have an infinite pot, but we want to accommodate where we can, particularly in order to get these cases adjudicated and have, you know, the staff of attorneys that we need. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. First, Commissioner Terry, and then Commissioner Davis-Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And those were pretty much my questions. So thank you for answering them. And I think we'll get, sounds like we're gonna get a more detailed proposal once y'all look at the salary savings. And I guess maybe just sort of a kind of a overarching question, is there, you know, besides the salary, is there anything else that you're hearing from your attorneys or, you know, would-be recruits that are in the realm of other benefits to work in DeKalb County Public Defender's Office? And if there are, you don't have the answer now, but if there are other things that we should be doing, you know, other than just increasing the salary, we definitely want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a big thing is workload. You know, we are still in the pandemic. We really are when it comes to court cases, that we have not worked down the backlog and more cases keep on coming in. So we are at a historic high in the public defender office. We have over 15,500 open cases in the public defender's office. So much of it also revolves around the workload and the stress of that kind of workload.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner? Good.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe just a follow-up, would like to pose the question of, you know, I know there was, you know, so there was a certain period of time when the courts just didn't hear any cases. And so that's part of the backlog. Has there, I mean, I think I heard that there was like maybe additional court times into the evenings or on weekends and things. And so maybe, is it possible that there's just a, I don't know if it's like a rubric that between the public defenders and district attorney, solicitor, I think this is more for the FAB committee to ask, is when we just talk about the courts and where we are on the backlog, is there a kind of a strategic plan for clearing that backlog quicker than it would take in the normal course? I'm just curious what y'all are talking about on how to actually, you know, catch up on that backlog.
Sure. Yeah, I can tell you that the Superior Court, they created an 11th division. So there's actually a whole nother division. There's actually an 11th division and a 12th division. So they've created 2 additional divisions. However, we have the same amount of staff. So there's different judges and new judges coming in that are hearing more cases or more trials, but we're still always limited by the number of staff that we have and who can be in court. But that's helping, you know, like move like some private attorneys might have trials going on in the 11th division. And so the courts are trying to work to resolve more cases more quickly.
And this is a question for you, Ms. Ari, as well as any of our other, you know, I think this is just sort of a open-ended question for the court backlog situation and the capacity constraints that we're talking about here. Is there a paradigm that exists for retired lawyers, retired judges, people that are, you know, have legal experience that, you know, just basically have free time? Is there anything that exists for us to ask our community and the people that have the experience to do the job, but maybe they, you know, just are, they don't do it anymore? Is there anything that exists to support that we can be asking, you know, our own residents to help?
Well, any lawyer, as long as you're licensed to practice in Georgia, can always represent a client pro bono, for free. So, without charging anything. So there's always pro bono services. Most of the judges staffing the 11th and the 12th Circuit are in fact senior or retired judges who have come out of retirement. They're in senior status and they are staffing those particular divisions. So.
I see. Okay, so we feel, so it sounds like we have more judges, more divisions, and another key cog of this is more attorneys to just be able to, whether it's mentally and physically handle the workload. Is there literally a situation where there's a case that can't be heard because there's not enough public defender, hours to devote to the case, and so it might continue to get deferred?
Yeah, we can only try one case at a time. So,
okay.
We can only be in one courtroom and trying one case at a time. So yes, the more lawyers you have, the more you can do. And that's what I'm going to be looking at with the remaining ARPA funds to see if we could pivot to try to get some and recruit some additional lawyers. But it's a challenge. It is a challenge to recruit people interested in doing public interest in government work at this point.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to undercut this ask because I think your point that you're making for just support of the public defender office and supporting the longevity and sustainability of the system, I think is core to what you're asking. And so I completely support what you're saying and what you're asking for. And then I wonder, just within that context, should we be considering additional grant funds to the organizations that in essence seek to get those volunteers to help? Atlanta Legal Aid, DeKalb Volunteer Lawyers Foundation. Are those entities, are there others that if we support them in addition to what you're asking, would that be a net benefit?
Yeah, the challenge is that those organizations, they don't do criminal defense work. So they're specific to more civil work. And, you have to be experienced. You have to obviously know what you're doing when it comes to criminal law. And so those organizations focus much more on the civil aspect of the law rather than criminal. So there really are not, except for lawyers who do pro bono work, organizations outside of public defender organizations that do criminal defense work, that have that expertise.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd like to tip my hat off to the public defender's office. For a long time, I used to say with pride what a great job that the public defender's office do in DeKalb County. And they are very much underfunded. If you compare them with district attorney's offices. I've been practicing law for many, many, many years, but I tell you, I could not go in front of a criminal court and accurately defend a criminal client. These are people that will be deprived of their liberty. They will be locked up. In most civil cases, there's only a few civil case instances in civil cases where you are locked up and denied your freedom. But in criminal matters, you're denied your liberty. And if you have an attorney in that court that do not know what they're doing, believe me, the client suffers. And so I understand that we're tight on funds, but I also understand that there's many citizens out there that have been charged with a criminal offense that have no income, no means of obtaining an attorney, and the only source that they can turn to is the public defender's office. And I understand what she said, it's 15,000 cases on hold. And it's probably more than that that need a criminal defense attorney. So I'm in support of it. If we can squeeze it in, I say let's squeeze it in, because we have to, if we need to compete, I mean, that's what we compete with our surrounding metropolitan counties. But we have to have our public defenders to represent those that are in need of an attorney, because every alleged criminal is not a criminal, but they can be deprived of their rights if they do not have proper representation, and they can be placed in jail. So, Mr. COO, I'm saying as much as that money as we can get, I know is needed, because the public defender's office has always, since I've been practicing, been underfunded. And if you compare that with what the DAs make and what to put you in jail, and what the public defenders make to make sure that your constitutional rights are observed, you know, there's no comparison. So I say if we can get the money, I'm in favor of getting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Terry, one more bite of the apple.
Yeah, one more bite. I just wanted to, Commissioner Davis Johnson, man, I'm cheering you in the background, because I totally agree, which is why I also think we should have the same context when we talk about the eviction court, because 90% of tenants in the eviction court have no legal representation. But surprisingly, all the studies have showed that when a tenant facing eviction has a lawyer, it's less likely to be evicted. They're going to save money. It's going to save a lot of time and energy. It's going to reduce the backlog as well. This is a win-win-win. But I know we're talking about public defender and criminal here.
Oh,
You're on mute, Commissioner.
yeah, you muted off.
Someone muted me. That's it. I mean, it's the same principle. People need lawyers, but they don't have one in the eviction court. And we can use ERA money for the next 4 years to ensure that there's some legal representation in the eviction court. It'll prevent people from being evicted. It'll lead to a better result, hopefully not a 6-year black mark on their credit score, which basically prevents them from renting from anywhere else. And it will be a affordable housing strategy, because we'll help keep people in their homes. So I'm cheering you over here, 2 doors down.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Mr. Williams, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
Very briefly, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I want to commend the public defender. She's done a magnificent job in laying out the challenges that she faces. We've had a number of discussions, and we recognize that what she is presenting is very much real. And that goes for really throughout the court system, in large part, competition with other jurisdictions, but also in this market, as we've seen throughout a lot of our job classifications, people are simply going elsewhere. We're also competing very much with the private sector. We feel that these investments, once we present a budget, and the original number that Ms. Sari had presented will go down, but this is really part of our public safety strategy. These investments in the justice system, we recognize that we have to try people, and we have to do all that we can to move justice as quickly as possible, because as they say, justice delayed, of course, is justice denied. And so we're working with Ms. Sari, we're working with the DA, we're working with the magistrate court and the chief judge all of them are experiencing similar issues, and our solution will be reflected in the mid-year budget.
Thank you. Other questions, other comments? Hearing none, we'll look forward to hearing more about the public defender's part of this proposed budget amendment. We're also looking forward to hearing from other constitutional officers if they have specific proposals for budget amendments over the next few meetings. And of course, looking forward to hearing from other committees of jurisdiction as they review proposed amendments. The attachment A from the prior version is already out there and available. Mr. Williams, can you talk a little bit about how you're going to present those budget amendment proposals to the committees of jurisdiction and to this committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what I would anticipate over the next couple of weeks, presenting to the various committees of jurisdiction any activities that would be, or any adjustments, I guess, affecting those departments under their various jurisdictions, trying to have kind of small discussions, just focused on those focus areas of each committee. With the anticipation probably mid-August, seeking for the actual adoption of the budget. And simultaneously, we will be developing a proposal for ARP expenditures, much like what we did last year. Because there's often opportunities for things that may have been requested in the general budget that can be funded through ARP and vice versa. So I see those two activities probably moving in tandem over the next 30 days or so.
Okay. I would also offer that same opportunity to members of the commission to propose budget amendments that their committees may have identified as being high impact. And it also goes with the ARP funding that we are going to receive. Some of us have developed some fairly successful programs using our district-directed funds over the past few months, and that may support action by the commission to expand or to elaborate on some of those issues. So I would also encourage the members of the commission and committees to do likewise, so that as we consider administration proposals, we'll also have the proposals from members of the commission and our constitutional officers to whom we're responsible for funding. Any further comments on that process?
Just a comment, Mr.
Sure.
Just Zach, make sure you keep us posted. I remember making a resolution for the opioid settlement. And so I see Cobb County has gotten theirs. And so we were one of the first counties to sue. So hopefully.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes.
Perhaps insofar as that's litigation, you could put that on an upcoming executive session agenda and bring back to us information on that particular objective.
And I see Madam Attorney, I know she's taking copious notes. So.
I am.
Anything
I
else?
believe that was probably directed at me. Just said the wrong name, but he meant Vivian. Zach and I look so much alike.
And I give free legal advice.
I'll take you anytime as co-counsel, no problem. Yes, sir, we'll report back.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the members of the committee or from other members of the commission? Seeing none, and before I lose my quorum, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.